Materialists is about a New York City matchmaker who's the best in her game, but when it leads on to finding her own romance life, it takes her on to learning the ups and downs of what love is all about. Hello and welcome to Cinema, where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Materialists. Was it good, was it bad, or somewhere right in the middle? Or if you're waiting for this review to decide if you're going to see it or not, which takes me right into the positive. Materialists is the second film by Celine Song, coming off of what we got in past lives, but the film in this regard is really poetic, really sympathetic in the way that it goes about the odes to love, the messaging, the thematic elements throughout is really soft-spoken, but direct in its own subtle way for the nature where you're looking at a great cast, Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, as well as Pedro Pascal, that Dakota Johnson plays this character that's the matchmaker that's really expert, has really been successful in the company that she works for, knowing everyone's quirks, the ticks that goes about through all that. She delivers such a great performance, given the range for what the dialogue asks of it, and where we're taking Chris Evans, being the ex-boyfriend of her, goes about in a roundabout way for the nature of what you're loving about him being the poor man, the simple man that doesn't ask for much, but there's different fights about finances, of course, regarding that and his relationship with her in the past. And we're getting Pedro Pascal, the third lead, that goes about as this rich man that stumbles across her, that tries to get into a relationship, that everything's going effectively for the way these things come about, which can create tension throughout where you're expecting, but things aren't always in the traditional romance sense. It's not a rom-com that you go in for the giggles and laugh, even though you do have some good time with it. It has the emotional strides that picks up the pace, manages to dive into these thematic ideas that are going throughout the film as a whole, and it feels down to earth and full of life for the way it's directed. It's simplistic and naturalistic, but still is poetic in the same way that it tackles all these ideas, the way you're taking this cast and giving them great performances that are some of the best that I personally seen of them, and the way you go about following these characters becomes compelling, has the naturalistic dialogue that has a smooth flowing tension to it, has a poetic guide to what you're taking out of it. There's flirtatious ideas, and the way you're going about with all the editing to the film as a whole is really great. Going about things where you're following and tracking one of Dakota Johnson's clients that she's going about, having a hard time finding the match to this girl that's trying to be able to move on with her life, find the love of her life, and Dakota Johnson plays that character that's trying to always encourage, because she's always good. She hasn't necessarily failed a client yet with finding a match, and certain incidents come about with that really pays into respects to where love all takes in a toll, the ups and downs, the difficulty finding a love, finding a match, and knowing what quirks and which different personality types fit well with one another, which really dives into the meaning of love, that goes about a really well and grounded and philosophical way of explaining love throughout the film that I just absolutely adore. The characters feel very normal, very, very naturalistic. Yes, you get the quirky ones that Pedro Pascal plays the perfect man, that he doesn't have any flaws to him, and so that all leads into things that become interesting, defines love in the purest way, that I just think there's a philosophical idea that as a A24 film, it may not have the weird quirks that some A24 films do, but the groundedness to it manages to show there's a strong focus on storytelling, on character building, that really livens up the experience as a whole, that opens things to what we get out of prologue and epilogue to this film, that is all based on Dakota Johnson's character's dream, that she sees the very first love that works in within the themes as well, giving off a strong idea to what you're absorbing from this film, not going into it as a rom-com, but still having the emotions to laugh at certain moments, but also adore the charming atmosphere that livens up the screen because of the romance, how different flirtatious ideas, the dialogue that works in as a whole, all comes to a close with a natural feeling, which takes me into the mix elements. Of course, there's an idea where you can't always expect this to be a rom-com, so do not go into this film expecting to be laughing out loud, expecting all the tropes that you know and love about rom-coms, whether you enjoy those tropes or not. Regardless, this doesn't have those tropes. It goes about a pretty natural feeling film where some ideas or certain characters may be in the film less than you expect, particularly with Pedro Pascal, but he still has a pretty prominent role that he appears for the length that he needs to. It's natural to the grounds of where you're taking Dakota Johnson's life playing the matchmaker, that really builds the odds to certain things to come about. But of course, not everyone will be appealed to that type of story. If you're not necessarily looking for a philosophical, introspective look at the definition of love, then this one may not be specifically for you, outside of what the grounds that this film is working as a whole. Certain ideas with the relationships maybe you won't be all too connected with, but there's some aspects to that it may be good in quality, even if it doesn't particularly work for you. It may not work for everyone, but that's just something I do have to regard in explaining what may work for you, what doesn't, and it does set my score back a little just for the way that you go about some of the pacing, but all forgiven, the nature of what all this film exploits as a whole is something that still strongly works for me, which there's no negatives that I have to really strongly express about this film, so that goes into my rating, which I have to rate a simply 9 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of Materialists. Was it good, was it bad, or somewhere right in the middle? Or if you're now going to see the film based on my suggestions or not, make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already to join in film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.